There is a story of a Navajo grandfather who told his grandson, "Two wolves live inside of me. One is full of greed, laziness, anger, and regret. The other is full of joy, kindness, and love for the world. Always, these wolves are fighting inside of me." "But grandfather," the boy said, "which one will win?" The grandfather answered, "The one that I feed." While some people may think that the expansion of the United States is a good thing, the original inhabitants of the areas of expansion often feel differently. An example of this was the overthrowing of Hawaii. What happened to Hawaii during this time was entirely to the fault of the United States. Not only did they largely back those overthrowing with support from the Marines, which President Grover Cleveland referred to as an unauthorized act of war, they also completely ignored the native Hawaiians whom were trying to stop this from happening. There were many people trying to stop the annexation, but Queen Liliuokalani was definitely a prominent figure. Leading up to the overthrow of Hawaii, there is the Missionary Party. They are a group of wealthy European businessmen who are looking for more of a European-type monarchy. In this style of government, the parliament would have more power than the king. But the problem with this was that they were also looking for themselves to have more power in voting than the native Hawaiians. They would then later do this with the Bannock Constitution. They knew that there was no way that they could get this passed. The parliament would shoot it down immediately. Hawaiians during the 1890s usually looked to avoid violence as much as possible. So, the Missionary Party took advantage of this. They went ahead and threatened King Kalakaua in order to get him to pass the new constitution. Hawaii at the time could definitely fend off from the Missionary Party easily, but the king wished to avoid bloodshed however possible. King Kalakaua later died in 1891. This made Liliuokalani the first and only queen of the Hawaiian Islands. Queen Liliuokalani was a beloved poet and songwriter amongst the islands, but she was disliked by the Missionary Party due to the fact that she abolished the Bannock Constitution and restored the voting rights of Native Hawaiians. Not long after, an Ohio senator named William McKinley proposed the McKinley Tariff. This put a fee on imports of goods into the United States. This upset the Missionary Party, as most of them were wealthy plantation owners. But they knew that if Hawaii were to become a territory of the United States, the McKinley Tariff would no longer affect them. They then became known as the Hawaiian League. They strived to gain support from other people and had to try hard in order to not get people to report their activities. They later gained support from the U.S. Minister to Hawaii. The support from the minister played a pivotal role in the annexation. The minister to Hawaii said that the U.S. could use Hawaii both strategically and economically, which were largely the reasons that he gave support to the coup. But they both knew that if the Hawaiian League were to partake in the overthrow, that they could not accomplish it. They knew that Liliuokalani disliked them just as much as they disliked her, and she wouldn't take this from them, as for they were in very small numbers. The Hawaiian League tried its best in recruiting, but to no avail. The U.S. Minister to Hawaii knew about the problems that the Hawaiian League were facing and sent approximately 300 Marines over to the islands in order to aid in the overthrow. When the Marines arrived, nobody except for the Hawaiian League knew exactly what for. It was anyone's guess. Queen Liliuokalani was alerted by the arrival of the Marines, but there was nothing that she could do. She knew that the military of the United States was much larger than those of Hawaii. The coup set up at Liliuokalani Palace, where the Queen was located. She could then easily tell what was going on. The Queen could have taken on the Hawaiian League, but the arrival of the Marines really swayed her reaction. A large amount of Hawaiians were to die if she were to resist. This was the last thing that Hawaii needed. The Queen conceded in order to avoid the many amounts of people that would die, and an annexation treaty was sent off to President Harrison right away. He was in favor of the annexation treaty, but he only had 1 month left in office. When his term was over, Grover Cleveland was the last hope of the Hawaiians. He was a greatly respected anti-imperialist at the time, and he shot down the annexation treaty and referred to the overthrow as an act of war by the United States. The Hawaiians could trust him not to annex the islands. In fact, President Grover Cleveland requested for the government of the Hawaiian Islands to be restored to its original state, and he changed the U.S. flag that was at Liliuokalani Palace to the original Hawaiian flag. Although of this, the Hawaiian League ignored his request and decided to create a provisional government. When the military support from the U.S. was no longer active, a group of Hawaiians decided to revolt against the Missionary Party. During the revolt, many people were killed and many more arrested. Due to this revolt, the provisional government but Queen under house arrest. The Hawaiians who were wishing for the islands to be annexed were very disappointed when William McKinley became president. William McKinley would later be famous for annexing many different places during his time in office. A problem with William McKinley becoming president that the Hawaiians could see right away was that most Republicans during the 1898 election were for the annexation of Hawaii. This was no different for President McKinley. The annexation treaty was then revived. When Queen Liliuokalani was released, she came over to Washington in a last resort attempt to stop the islands from being annexed. She had the support from many people, both natives and part natives, to stop this annexation from occurring. Liliuokalani then filed a protest, and many Hawaiians were signing petitions to stop the annexation from happening. But all for naught. They were all ignored. When it came time for the Senate to vote on the issue in 1898, the islands were annexed. The official year of the annexation was 1900.
Queen Liliuokalani of Hawaii ruled in Honolulu, destined to become American territory. For Hawaii requested to be taken under the American flag. On the day this occurred, the Queen reviewed her native troops. Through Honolulu passed the royal parade, with flags of Spain and England blended into the Hawaiian emblem. The Queen, last of a long line of Polynesian rulers, signed the abdication that made Hawaii an American possession. These native troops became soldiers of Uncle Sam. Happy that her island kingdom became an American protectorate, the Queen of Hawaii bade farewell. The American Navy took control. Governor Dole, the gentleman with the spade beard, was the first American ruler of Hawaii.
Many Hawaiians were very disappointed, but this didn't stop them. There were many protests that continued to happen today. Hawaii would then later become a state after the bombings of Pearl Harbor. Then in 1993, 100 years after the overthrow, the U.S. apologized for their actions during the illegal overthrow of Hawaii. We can thank former Senator Liliuokalani for this. Liliuokalani has fought for Hawaii in many other instances. An example of this was when he tried to get Native Hawaiians to receive compensation for what happened during the overthrow. The annexation of Hawaii showed complete disregard towards the natives of the islands. Hawaiians to this day are protesting what occurred during the 1890s and shows just how much they disliked what happened during this time.
The day started with a march from Mauna Ala in Nu'uanu, ending at Iolani Palace. Dozens from various organizations come together in solidarity to honor Queen Liliuokalani and many others of the royal household. It was in 1893 that this palace became property of another nation.